Monday, December 25th, 2023 to order. And Doug, you noted the roll?
I have. Yes.
All right. Approval of minutes, August 28th, 2023. Is there a motion?
Move approval of the minutes.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion or changes?
On page 3, conditions of approval number 4. No additional signage shall be permitted for the future tenant. That should be storage space in the southeast corner of the original space, because we asked about that specifically, and when they said it's just going to be storage.
Yes.
So then we said no signage on the storage.
Yep.
I just didn't want the minutes to reflect that they're looking to see another tenant in there.
Noted. We'll make those changes. Any other changes or comments? And then, seeing none, all those in favor with the change suggested by Chris?
Aye.
Aye.
And motion passes. Do we have any appearances?
I think everybody is associated with applications.
Applications? Okay.
Everybody, all one?
I got a couple on
So you got it online. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Seeing no appearances, new business. A, public hearing for Ken Walls on request for consideration of a certified survey map to consolidate 2 lots for the purpose of constructing an addition to the single-family residence at 4405 Outlook Street. Case number 2015-2023.
Good evening. Is that an invitation for
Yes.
me to speak? Okay,
Yep.
thanks. Well, thanks for putting me on the agenda tonight. I'd like to take a few minutes to kind of familiarize yourself with my situation and share some additional information that I've got, some of which will be new even to Doug. And let me also just preface this by saying Doug and I have been communicating on this for several years now. He's been very helpful, and the situation's been frustrating for me, but I know Doug's just doing his job, so it shouldn't reflect in any way on the work he's done. But let me share you a little bit of background. On February 7th, we had an attic fire in our house. It was an electric fire. 90-year-old electric system didn't want to go to 100 years. And we were forced to move out. Fortunately, the fire department put it out. They saved the house. Nobody was hurt. But we weren't able to live in the house anymore at this point. Our house is 940 square feet. It's 2 beds and 1 bath. We've got 2 young kids, age 2 and 5, and we've been planning for several years to eventually expand as our family grew. So since the attic was damaged and we were going to have to do repairs and tear the roof on anyways, this was an opportunity to add a second story and some extra bedrooms. The challenge was the existing house doesn't meet the current zoning standards. It's encroached into the setbacks on 3 sides, anywhere from half a foot to a few feet. So we made a plan that would limit the second story to staying within the existing footprint of the house, and we actually cured the setback on one side where we were going to tear down a wall and put a new foundation. But the 2 sides we couldn't do anything about because they're existing load-bearing walls. But we did our best to honor the spirit of the zoning ordinance, and we proceeded with the variance application. So Doug helped me through that process in the spring, and on June 15th we met with the zoning board, and they granted a setback variance for the house. During the discussion, it was observed that my survey map had some, I guess you'd say, atypical aspects, so the board requested a consultation with the city attorney to review documents before issuing building permits. And I thought that meant I'd need to attend another 30-minute meeting, but I was really wrong. So when I got the copy of the variance on June 30th, it had a condition attached to it that said that the 2 lots shall be combined in a manner satisfactory to the city attorney prior to the issuance of permits. So, my immediate response to Doug was what's this about 2 lots, and what does this mean to me, that sort of thing. So Doug said he had to consult with the attorney and get back to me. So then 4 weeks passed, and by the time I heard back on July 27th, Doug said that the city attorney was requesting a certified survey map, which eventually is how I end up here tonight. But when I spoke with my surveyor, he said this didn't make sense because you own a single parcel and there's nothing to merge. So he asked, if there's a question about the PLATA survey that was provided, could we clarify things, or was there other information that they wished to see? I relayed that to Doug, and he couldn't really answer those questions, but he did offer to schedule a meeting with the attorney, so we got that on the calendar. Unfortunately, another month passed before we could actually do that until August 23rd. In the meantime, my surveyor suggested I meet with the Dane County Planning Office, so I did. I went downtown and got them digging up maps, and all the maps that I provided you folks in your packet came from Dane County. It turns out I don't really own 2 lots. There's 2 lots, 5 and 6, that are of interest, which are the big lots on the 1909 plat map with the pink line between them, which is where my house resides, but I don't own lots 5 and 6. Those lots no longer exist. They've been long since carved up and subdivided into 9 different properties. So condition number 2 is immediately like confusing because I can't merge what I don't own and what no longer exists, right? And furthermore, the old survey line that's shown in pink there on those maps, that survey line doesn't exist anymore either because the subdivision was replatted in 1929. You guys can see the 1929 map as well. And that line was abandoned and a new property line was established, which actually serves as a boundary not just for my lot, but also for 4407 Outlook, 4415, and 4417 Winnequa. And that old lot line, or sometimes it's marked as the original lot line on these maps, appears on all the subsequent maps for the location. My actual property was created in 1935 as part of Replat B, which is where the yellow lines first show up that show my lot. And you can still see the pink lines shown as the original Lot 5 and Lot 6, and then when they draw the yellow line, you can see that the pink one still runs through the middle of my property. And the key thing to understand there is, like they were replatting a bunch of the neighborhood at the same time. And on the last blow up that you can see, they took some portions of land and tied them together into individual properties. You can actually see the property addresses on the map for Replat B. And there's land hooks, or what are sometimes called land area braces or reculum marks, indicating the sort of 3 rectangles that make up my lot. So I did send all this stuff to Doug and pass it along to the city attorney. Let me see here, just go back to my notes. It looks kind of weird, but the Dane County Plan Commission said, this actually is not that uncommon. It happened all over Dane County in the 20s and 30s with lakefront property, as these large lots that had been farmland were subdivided up into smaller parcels with 50 feet of frontage. And in many cases, they moved old or original lot lines over to accommodate 50 feet to give more people access to the water. So these old lines were redrawn and superseded, and he said, your lot looks wacky, but only for people that are used to seeing nice rectangular lots plotted out on square line street grids and wide open farm fields. If you look at parts of Madison or Maple Bluff or Shore, Lake Wabeesa, Kegonsa, you see this all over the place. And he actually said, in this case, they don't recommend messing with those old plat maps because it gets really costly and complex, and it chews up a lot of city and county time. And he recommended against doing anything with my existing property. He said your property was created in whole in 1935 when it was platted, and there's nothing here to be merged because it was all merged 88 years ago, as shown on this plat map. So then while we were waiting for a meeting with the city attorney, the Dane County office referred me to the Wisconsin Department of Administration Platting Manual, and he gave me this checklist that shows the conditions after completing a conventional plat survey that would require proceeding to a certified survey map. He said, well, if we look through these, physical changes to the land, no. Resolving discrepancies with prior records, no. Lines not shown in a prior record, no. Points or lines that cannot be located, no. And establishment of a lost property corner. None of those apply to your property. I don't think you should have to get a CSM. So I sent that also to the city attorney. I didn't get a response back, but that's okay because I knew I was having a meeting eventually with him. So finally on the 23rd, I got to meet on Zoom with Doug and the city attorney. So we had a 15-minute conversation, and it kind of appeared to me when we started talking to him that I don't think he'd looked at any of the stuff I'd sent previously. That was my impression because we spent about 10 minutes just trying to brief the attorney on the situation. And it kind of ended with him saying if there's a question about the property, then the property owner needs to get a certified survey map. And in hindsight, I think I didn't know what to expect from that meeting, and I wasn't very well prepared. And it was probably pretty disorganized when I tried to present it and encapsulate all this in our conversation to him. And I also, I totally appreciate why he didn't respond to my emails. I mean, he probably bills several $100s an hour. I know he works for multiple municipalities on projects way bigger than my little house renovation, right? Like, I'm trying to command his attention to a grain of salt in the Pacific Ocean at this point, right? So it probably just didn't register on the radar screen. That took me to, well, let's see. I got to August 25th while I'm communicating with Doug, and my builder referred me to State Statute Chapter 236 on platting of lands and reporting of plats. And it states right in there on Article 1A that this chapter shall not require any subdivision made prior to 1956, which was platted under the laws in force at the time he replatted. And then it goes on to Article 2 that says no plat which was recorded in any office of any register of deeds prior to 1956 shall be held invalid by reason of noncompliance with any statute regulating the platting of lands. So my builder told me, you shouldn't have to do this. The only thing that was missing is that none of this stuff was on file with the city of Monona, because Monona didn't exist when any of this was done. The village didn't get incorporated until 1938, and it didn't become a city until 1969. And all of this stuff happened almost 100 years ago. So anyways, that took us to August 29th, and I got the email from Doug after our meeting with the attorney with the instructions for how to proceed with this CSM application, which involves 2 meetings with you folks, a Public Works Committee, an external engineering review, and then 2 city council meetings. And like not seeing any other alternative, I just said, all right, you guys hold all the cards, so I'm going to pay my surveyor to make a new map. But I'd still like to know, like, what is the city hoping to see or learn from a certified survey map that doesn't already show up on the Plata survey map? Because we never really answered my surveyor's question. And I still didn't get an answer. To this date, the attorney has never answered that question. So, absent any feedback, I made 10 copies of everything I had, and I put it in a packet, and I gave it to all you folks. And then last Thursday, September 21st, this is new information to Doug, I had a conversation with our bank trying to set up a home equity loan for this project. And while I was on the phone, they started asking me about when I would want to do the first draw for construction and setting up the timeline. And I explained to them, well, it's all kind of hinging on this CSM process, and I don't know how long it might take. It could take 6 weeks, but I think the city has 90 days that they can take to consider it. And the first thing the bank said is, you should not need a certified survey map to build a second-story addition. And I went, yeah, you're like the 6th or 7th person to tell me that, right? And then the second thing they said was, if you create a certified survey map, it will modify your legal property description and your deed. And she said that will be problematic since the bank holds a lien on your property. And I kind of went, so, okay, what does problematic mean? And she said, well, you might have to pay off your existing mortgage in full and then take out a loan for the new property based on the new deed that's created as a result of the certified survey map. So my existing loan is a 30-year fixed rate loan at 3%. If I have to pay that off in full and take out a new loan today at 7.5%, like that kills this project. I can't do it, right? And I was kind of in astonishment, and I'm asking the woman, like, are you serious, right? And she said, well, I'm actually not certain about this because it's a highly abnormal request. And she said, this is not something that's ever done to put an addition on a home when the property boundaries are not changing. And she said she's been doing this for 20 years and she's never seen this before. So her advice was that I write a letter to my bank's research office and ask them to open an investigation.
Oh my God.
And then she said, I should probably warn you, this could take a very long time to resolve. It might be next year before this shakes out. And so that was last week, Thursday, leading up to our meeting today. And then just this morning, my wife started having chest pains and her regular heartbeat and ended up in the emergency room. Probably, she doesn't have a history of heart problems, and it might turn out to be nothing, but it's probably more than a little bit coincidental that she landed in the ER the same day that we're here with you folks to consider our dilemma. So that brings us here, and what are we going to do, right? I mean, This has already delayed our home renovation by several months. My family's been displaced since February. We're in danger of not being able to pour concrete before the ground freezes, which could postpone us by another whole year if we lose our place on our builder's calendar. Which would also put us in violation of condition 1 on the variance that said we need to get building permits within 6 months. Meanwhile, we're out of our house. It's already caused us really significant financial harm. I've paid $5,000 in survey expenses. This is now several months of mortgage payments and property tax on a place where we can't live. Meanwhile, I'm paying housing costs elsewhere for my family. That's added up to another $6,000 and climbing. Since May, the rates on the loan that we're seeking have gone up by 0.75%, which doesn't sound like much, but it's going to cost us about an extra $200 a month for the next 15 years. So that adds up to another $36,000. And we've sunk $10,000 into architect plans for a house addition that now might never be built. So the tab's at $57,000, and we still don't know how much more money is going to get earned. But like, that could be 2 years of school for my daughters at Madison College, plus close to 2 more years at UW, right? And I've got nothing to show for it at this point. And if we can't keep our existing fixed rate mortgage, the project's completely unworkable. Regardless of if I get a CSM, we can't do it. So, I mean, I'll be straightforward. My family's not poor. We live on the lake, right? But despite the fact that we have a house on the lake, like, we're not part of the 1%. My wife and I are teachers. We're hardworking middle-class folks. We manage our money carefully for our kids, and we've saved for the last 14 years to be able to build onto this house. And this survey map red tape has already bled our savings. And I know Doug can probably tell you how frustrated I sound every time I leave him another voicemail. He's got to listen to all of them, right? But like, this is going to scuttle our house and force us out of our home. And now on top of this, it might be impacting my family's health. So I know that the zoning board made their recommendation in good faith. I mean, I know they did. They noticed something atypical, this historic lot line running through my lot. I totally understand that. And I know Doug's just doing his job. He's following directions. He's doing what the zoning board instructed him to do and what the lawyer told him. And I also appreciate that the lawyer is like offering his 5 minutes of textbook legal advice, which a small project like ours might command. You know, if there's a question about a survey, get a certified survey map. I understand all of that. But what I don't think folks have appreciated is, like, this issue is severing my family from our community. We've lived here for 14 years. We're invested in Monona. As some of you know, I've served on sustainability committees with the city and the school district. We volunteered for electronics recycling campaigns. My family's bought and planted trees in Winnequa Park and Fireman's Park. I coached t-ball games and at Gunderson Field and soccer practice at Fireman's Park. And when the mayor contacted me to ask if I'd serve on a committee to help review and select developers for the new city hall, I agreed, because I knew I had expertise that would benefit our community. I knew it was important to our community. But, you know, when the gears of city government are like grinding my family to bits, it's agonizing. And at some point I got to ask myself, you know, can I keep compromising my family for this single-minded pursuit to stay in Monona? So, you know, I guess what I'd just like to share is, you know, my father was an advocate that government functions best when it's closest to the people on a local level, with representatives that are responsive to the citizens that they serve. And that's you folks. And you folks have it in your power to, like, help me fix this mess, right? You're our neighbors. You know my family's not trying to pull a fast one on anybody in the city by repairing our house. I know you all appreciate the historic origins of Monona. You understand the nature of the neighborhood and the block that we live on, and you know how it came to be. I know some of you own property very near ours, and a few of you own property right around the corner from ours. I don't know if they're all here tonight. And it's quite possible you or your neighbors might have similar, like, antiquated lot lines lurking beneath your own homes that you're just not aware of. And I'm sure that none of you would want to experience what we have, or to set precedent for other Monona residents that they would have to go through this headache. So what I'm asking for you folks is to like use your authority and try and inject some common sense into this process and cut through the red tape. What we'd like to see, what my wife and I are asking is for you to set aside the city attorney's opinion and abort the CSM process and just give Doug directions that he can proceed with processing our zoning variance and issuing building permits. Basically overturn or void the condition that was attached to our variance. We already have a grandfathered non-conforming lot and a grandfathered non-conforming structure. We already have an approved variance. We just need building permits. And we're not asking you to change anything with our property boundaries, just like leave them alone the way they've been for the last 88 years. We're not asking you to approve anything. Just consider the larger picture and help us out by striking that condition from our variance. And if you can remove that obstacle, it'll let us get on with our repairs and renovations and get back into our home. So thanks for listening and thanks for your consideration.
Ken, thanks for sharing this, and I can absolutely understand how frustrating. I mean, I can't understand how frustrating because you have been through this. And what do we need to do to fix this?
Can I ask, so your deed shows what's here on the yellow lines as your actual lot lines.
Yeah.
So to get a deed, you have a survey at some point. So somewhere along the line, there was a survey that said that was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's a significant
Yes.
thing. I mean, and given that these other lines go way back, I don't know that we have the authority to override the zoning board, but the city council probably does. I don't know. Chris, I don't know.
Chris.
Do you know or do
Well,
you?
my guess, this was created by plat. Okay?
Right.
So it was
Yeah.
a lot, and there's been plat surveys since then. And my guess is when ZBA saw it, I don't know, I wasn't there, that old property line should have just never been on there.
Yep.
Right.
Why
That's what I
is
was
that
thinking,
shown?
yeah.
If it's not a current property line, I mean, they did it, I'm sure in good faith, because it's illegal to build a building across the property line. Now, that could have happened 100 years ago, and it was done, and there's still a property line there, and they're saying you can't be over a property line, we can't let you build more over a property line. And I'm guessing that was their reason for doing it.
Correct.
And so they sent it on, said, just let's make sure it's okay. And they said, let's just have the attorney make sure it's okay. And Bill Cole's a good attorney, but he's not a land surveyor, and he doesn't understand plats. So I think he's doing the best he can with what he has. And if it were me, I think Sue's right, we don't have the authority to overturn ZBA. We don't have that. But it's come to us as a commission, we do have the authority to make a recommendation to somebody about what we feel is the right way to go. And I would think, for me, I would say we recommend that the city attorney okay Doug consulting with a land surveyor and making sure this is single buildable lot, okay? Everybody said it is, the thing shows it, wouldn't take them long to look at it. The only concern Monona would have is that this is a single lot. You said it many times, it's still got that stupid line on it everywhere. Why do they put that line on there? Once you've redone a lot, that line shouldn't be there. Maybe that somebody figures it has historical value, but that's what's messing this whole thing up. So I would say we can't overturn it, but if the committee felt comfortable, we're not an action item, but we could have maybe a consensus that, or just talk to Bill and say would it be, if we got an opinion from the city surveyor, our consultant, it'd either be Strand or Bierbecker. We need some professional advice that, yeah, all this is right.
I think it has to go to Bierbecker anyways if it gets to see
It would go anyhow, but it would be a long review. All he needs to do is look at this, and I'm sure the applicant would be happy to sit down with him and show him the history of it. And then if Bierbecker looks at it and says, yeah, this is a single buildable lot, then that problem's gone. There's no reason to require a CSM if it's an existing single buildable lot. And I think that's what Dane County was trying to tell you, but it is confusing. I'll tell you, I do a lot of this, and when I read through it and I saw this existing line all the time, it looks a lot like that could still be a property line. Why is this every survey that's been done show old lot line unless it was there?
I don't disagree that it was confusing. I'm an engineer, and it took me a long
They
time.
combine part of this lot and part of this lot, but then they keep showing that line in between.
Yeah.
And that's what I think confused ZBA. They don't look at a lot of property lines, and they said, let's just make sure this is a buildable lot, right? when I'm trying to read what's happened here. And I think we should say this, I would say the same thing. If it's a buildable lot and nothing's changed, then that condition would be satisfied. Because when you read the ZBA's condition, it just says, just get the city attorney, they didn't know that, it probably should have been Public Works to agree that that's a buildable lot, because the CSM goes through Public Works, Planning Commission, and the council. But since that was a condition, and we cannot overrule ZBA, the city council could, but I don't think it has to come to that. I think a quick call to Beerbecker, hey, could you look at this quick for us?
And we want to expedite that.
Yeah, no, I agree. You've gone through a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not lost on us. And I don't think anybody ever intended that.
I don't think any of it was malicious, of course. I think everybody was just trying to do their job and follow the rules. And
So
we didn't know when we started this process where it was going to lead.
Right.
Well, and there's another house on the other part of Lot 6. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. That's the other thing. I mean,
Which
you've
is
got
also
two
tied
houses
together with
on.
the land hooks on
Right.
Lot 6.
Right.
And the neighbor house behind me also has the old property line running right through the middle of their house, too.
Right.
Because that line was moved before those houses were ever built.
Yeah, the
Right.
current Lot 6 was two different lots before, so this is different Lot 6 than the original Lot 6.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's been surveyors.
So they do that, they don't change the numbers? That's
Well,
weird.
they have to start with new numbering, yeah. But when they combine, there was two lots there originally, and then they combined them, that's why that hook's in there. But then to build, they had to do this.
Right.
Because they can't build over a property line, which is the whole reason I think you're here, is to make sure you're not trying to build over a property line.
Right.
Right.
You try to, but it could be there, and it's to clean that up. And if we know that that's not a current property line, if it is a property line, then you have to get a CSM, because we can't, it's state statute, we can't let you build a house across two, it's built, but we can't issue further building permits when it's not in compliance with state law. So I'm sure that's what ZBA was looking at. And if the chair allows it, we could ask staff to send that message.
Yes, but I think Corinne had something first, too.
Well, it was just a clarification too. If you reach out and that is the answer, then you can get started. Like, he can get started, right? Because then it's not a pre-hearing, he doesn't have to come back. I mean, what you had said in here about your contracts in October as well, I mean,
Yes, so
it's October.
I've been proceeding with this to be a CSM for the pre-hearing to kind of follow those steps. It's tentatively on Public Works agenda to keep moving that path forward. With this recommendation and possible recommendation from the Commission, I'll certainly look to move that along. In the interim, the last thing I would want to do is stall that. If the answer
right.
comes back CSM, I would argue this still counts as a pre-hearing. This is still being considered as a pre-hearing, that nothing would potentially delay. Something else the applicant is looking at is potentially going back to ZBA and seeking that condition be taken away. To now
When would that be?
late October. So
Yeah, I mean, I can get it to council faster than that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So let's just get a simple opinion.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
that.
And staff is right in keeping this pre-hearing, keep it on the agenda for Public Works on Honest again, because what he's doing is it could take 6 weeks, but if we leapfrog all these meetings, then he can compress it. So he's doing everything in his power to compress the timeline. So I would agree, keep it on Public Works for now and keep it on us for 2 weeks from now for a final thing in case, but I don't think we'll have to see this gentleman again unless it's volunteering at one of our community events.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I'm sorry you've had to go through this, so,
I appreciate that.
and we'll help get this taken care of as much as we can.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Doug, I'll follow up your question
Yeah.
tomorrow. Oh, please.
First of all, thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing all this information. Thanks for your explanation. I'm assuming everything he said is accurate in your opinion?
Yes, and I would also share the point that Chris made as well. Was really the point that was raised at ZBA. Every survey document that has been requested, that's been produced, has included this line, that has included that across both lots. The ZBA, speaking as the staff member for that, had no problem with the variance request as shown with the yellow sort of lot lines, property boundaries, whatever we want to term those. There was no issue with the variance, and I think the term cleanup has already been used, that effectively that line, cleaning that, the pink-purple line, is the focus. And so, yes, it has been a process, and I absolutely acknowledge that, to get the city attorney's opinion to sort of work through this process as best as we can. We do have contact at Via Becker. I've already reached out, and they've taken a first look, but I will certainly come back with questions.
Take that long.
Yes, and really, it was being responsible that we typically have them review this post-pre-hearing prior to, obviously, the
So
formal
they haven't
consideration.
really looked at it yet.
They have looked at it, that it's a complete application from a CSM perspective. The question of property lines,
So all we need to know is this a single lot, or is this former property line still exist? If it's a single lot, it hits the purpose, the intent of ZBA. And if that old property line exists, then it has to be removed.
And I would think, that, again, the fact that there was a deed issued with this as a single lot,
Yes.
to me, that's pretty significant. You know,
So do you want to make a motion to make that recommendation?
It's not notice
It's not
for a
notice,
motion, that's
yeah.
why I
Oh,
said, can we
gotcha.
have a
Consensus.
consensus that we all
Got it,
kind
okay.
of agree that staff should take that direction and try to just cut it right off.
So if Beer Becker says it's one lot, then what?
Then-
Gotta wait another 6 weeks?
No, then nothing,
the
then
purpose
he
of
can,
this one lot,
it's done.
Doug forwards that information to the city attorney, who will be satisfied, and he can go ahead,
You can get a building permit.
in my opinion.
yes.
Yeah.
After
And-
this-
yes.
Time is kind of in the essence.
That'd be
of it.
remarkable.
And please
Yeah.
CC me.
I don't like taking it in the
Communication.
ground after October either.
Yes, and if for whatever reason that doesn't work, I'll bring it to council.
Yeah. Council could
Yep.
overrule.
Yep, council can overrule.
Yeah, get it on the agenda. When does council meet?
Next Monday.
Next Monday.
Okay,
yes.
yeah, I'd
So,
put it on the agenda for that.
yeah,
I
maybe I'll
mean,
put it on the agenda anyway.
Yeah,
so.
well, it should be, because you need 24
Oh,
hours,
yeah.
so yeah, get it on there, and then if
Okay.
you,
One question. You said it's a second floor addition only.
Yeah.
Then you mentioned concrete getting poured. Is that on the second
We're
floor?
taking down the existing garage, and we're moving the wall from the garage in to cure the setback encroachment on the southeast corner. Right now, it's built into the setback. That wall is actually compromised anyways. It's got a tree root underneath it.
Okay.
So we're looking at repairing the wall, and we just decided we'll tear down the garage and we'll narrow the garage up, and we'll cure that part of the lot.
Okay.
And fix the garage slab and put in a new frost wall.
Okay. Sounds like we have consensus, yes?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the time. So, and thanks, Doug, for helping get things organized tonight. So.
We dispense with B. And so moving on to C. Public hearing on request by Girish Kumar Patel, DBA Sud Beauty, for approval of the zoning permit for new use inside 2151 Royal Avenue, which is Walmart. Case number 2016-2023. Do we have anyone online to discuss it? No? Yes?
I believe the dial-in number.
Okay.
The attendee on the Zoom call that just dropped off.
All right.
Well, I can run through the application on the applicant's behalf. So this is a request to open a beauty store within the Walmart property at 2151 Royal Avenue. It would be a threading salon with 2 full-time employees, expecting about 10 to 30 visitors per day. The hours of operation are included in the packet as well, which will be 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday, as well as 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday. You'll see in the materials that a floor plan was shared as well. There will be very limited build-out and construction. This would all really just be tables and equipment that would be placed within the store. And you'll also see in the application materials an email that included a lot of those details already. I have seen a copy of the lease and sort of the owner approval for this as well. With it being Walmart, it was a pretty lengthy document, so I did not include that in the packet, but that condition has been satisfied as well. So apologies here for the miscommunication, but certainly those are the elements that were included with this.
Great. Looks like no one's jumped back on here, so looks pretty straightforward. Any comments?
I was here when we did the original approval. It's exactly what we expected. No issues.
Could I just, sorry, could we just confirm we go to the consideration?
Yes.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Yep. Thanks. Hold on a second. Sorry, I have Ken Walls in my mind now with that whole saga. So, consider the action on request by Girish Kumar Patel, DBA Soup Beauty, for approval of a zoning permit for new use inside 2151 Royal Avenue. Do we have a motion?
Move approval of staff conditions.
A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. And moving on to reports of staff and commission members.
Thank you. Couple updates for the commission. The staff met with the White Horse family last week as well as North Point. We had the pre-con meeting. They pulled building permits for the building. And you've probably seen a couple pieces of equipment out there already doing some groundwork. The road is also coordinating and they're running very concurrent paths there as well. So good news to share on that, and that keeps them on track and on time. At this point, they're looking, North Point would be looking to be complete by the end of next year, by end of 2024. So good news with that. And then the Bloom is expecting to come forward for the Plan Commission meeting on October 23rd for their formal consideration for the PIP as well. That's it for me. Thanks.
Does anyone else have anything else? Chris?
If I could ask a question, you mentioned the blooms coming back. Have you seen anything preliminary? It's the same thing we saw before?
I'm expecting the same, yes.
Thank you.
And if there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
So Doug, the second one.